Welcome back to the practical series of enterprise. Now let's continue with the next practical. So the next practical is practical number 4C, and the problem statement for it is create a registration and login JSP application to register and authenticate the user based on username and password using JDBC. Here, now let's understand how many things we require. First is we require a registration and login page. After that we require JSP pages for both, so that it can authenticate, means it can validate the user, and correspondingly if it is registration then it can store the data in JDBC, and while logging also it should authenticate the user based on the username and password, and it should log in into the system. So let's divide this whole project into two parts. So first will be registration and second will be login. So let's jump into the code and have a look at the code. So what we will do over here is we will create one project, Java Web Practical 4C. Click on next, click on finish. Since it is a JDBC program, so we require database also. So here we will open MySQL command line, enter the password. We have already created one database already. We'll show it to you. We had already created one database with the name as collegedb. So we'll move to collegedb, right? And let's check the table. Right, it. We have users and check the description of the users. So we have four columns over here, and this all we require for this practical. So here we won't be creating the database, we will just use it. So if you want the whole detailed video related to database, you can click on the I button above and you can watch the video how we created the database, the tables and the columns, everything, right? So now here what we will do is, here we will not have index.html, but we will create one more file over here. We will rename it as login, and it will create one login.html file for us. Now we will create one more file over here, HTML file, and we will term it as register, right? So first let's complete the code for registration. So here we will write registration form. Remove the div tag from here. Here we will write one h1 tag. In the h1 tag we will write registration form. Now from the next line we will create our form, and here the action for it, we will create one JSP page and we will add that action over here for registration. But before that, let's create the entities which are required for user input. So enter username, input type is equal to text, name is equal to username. We will have one br tag so that the next element should come on the next line. Enter password, input type is equal to, but because we don't want any other user, they can view the data, password. After that we will have re-enter password. Instead of enter we will write re-enter, input type will be password, name will be re-password, right? After that we will have enter email. input type email, name is equal to, and the last thing we have is country name. So we will let the user only type instead of having one any drop down or anything. So here we will have text name is equal to. So we are done with this. Now we require two buttons. The first will obviously be reset. If the user wants to clear the data, right? And the second will be our submit button. So type submit, value is equal to register. Now what we will do is we will create our JSP page over here and we will name it as login. We'll name it as login. And another one we will create that will be register. Here we don't have to click on anything apart from here we will write as register. Here we will write registration JSP. The title also let's change it. Now what we have to do over here is, first of all, what we have to do is click on services, databases, and we have to connect to our MySQL. Once we are done with that, we have to connect to our college data. So now once we are connected with that also, in the project section what we have to do is, in the project section in the libraries, we have to import our MySQL connector file. Don't get open, and we have to add our MySQL connector file. So once this is done, what we have to do now is we have to get the values which the user has submitted. Request dot get parameter, name, the next is so again request dot get parameter, here it will be. Now we had repassword. It is just one confirmation that the user enters proper password. After that we have his email, and the last is country. Request get back. Okay, so we are done with taking the inputs from the user. Now the next and the important thing we have to do is we have to first check whether the password and repeat password matches or not. If it doesn't match, then we don't have to move forward. If it matches, then we have to insert the value into the table, right? So if condition password dot equals repassword, if it matches, then we have to move forward. If it doesn't match, then what we have to do is we just have to print on the screen inside h1 tag password and repeat password. For that, what we have to do is we have to include the registration page over. So basically what will happen with include is we will again get the registration form below, because now we are using something as JSP tags. So we have to close the default replat tag, and here we have to right is JSP include. This is the page director what we have, what is being studied. Include will be closed, and here we have to include is register. What? So here we have completed if the password and repeat password doesn't match. Now we start with if the data is correct, what we have to do is we have to insert it into the. So before that we will just add one exception. So in case it occurs during database or something, then it will help us. So class.forName. So we have already seen how to add class.forName. We will right click services and the database. Here we will get the driver class. We have to just copy this driver class, right? And we have to paste it between the double quotes. After that we have is the connection. Connection URL is equal to driver manager what get connection. We require three things over here. First will be our localhost or my path. Second will be the username, and third will be the password of MySQL. So from here we copy to college DB. It will give us the path. Here we will have and here we will have. So our connection is done. Now what we have to do is we have to set the prepared statement. Right? Prepared statement is equal to connection dot prepare statement. Here we have to write the query for it. Here we will write insert into users value. User is basically the name of the table and we are inserting values one by one. So here we will have question mark. Basically we will add the values now after it. So statement dot string. The first parameter contains username, second parameter contains password, third parameter contains email ID, and the fourth contains country. Okay, so here we have also added our data with the prepared statement. So what it will do is during the runtime, the first question mark will get replaced with this, second question mark will replace with this, and so on. Now what we have to do is we have to execute the query and check whether the data is inserted or not. So what we will do over here is we'll have one variable which will get the count whether our data is inserted or not using execute update. If my row contains 1, data is inserted. H1 tag we will write registration. If not, if in case any error has been occurred, then what we have to do is we have to print on the screen using H1 tag fail to insert. Try again. Now what we will do over here is again we will include our registration file over here. So we will just copy this 3 lines and paste it over here. So what it will do is it will, if the registration is not successful, then it will include the registration page so that the user can re-register again. Right? So we have done with registration. And yes, so now let's execute this first and check whether our data is getting inserted into the table or not. So we will go to register.html, right click over here, and we will do run file. So basically it will only open register.html and it will not go to index.html. Okay, so our registration form is open over here. So what we will do over here is we will write our name. For now what we will do is we will enter wrong password for both. Here I will write admin and here I will write password. Both of them are different now. And here we will write countries. We will click on register and let's check whether it gives us an error of password mismatch. Okay, that's it. So what we have done is we have forgotten the action method over here. That is register.g. Okay. So we'll again enter our data. Here we will write admin. Here we will write password. Here we will write our email and here we will write our country. Click on register. So here it has given that password and repeat password does not match. And it has again displayed us the registration form below. Now what we will do over here is we will enter the correct data. Right, and click on register. It has displayed us that registration successful. Now what we will do is inside our MySQL we will select fire the select query and check about the data. Okay, so here the data is inserted successfully, right? We have two data, Hatim and Professor Hatim, password and this. Now what is our next task? Our next task is to set up the login. So what we will do is now let's start with this. Over here we will write login form. So in the h1 tag over here we will write login form, and after that we will write enter username. We will take input from the user. Text name will be username, and on the next line we will tell the user to enter password. Input type will be password, name will be password itself, again a br tag. Now what we want over here is two buttons again. One will be reset and second one will be submit, and the value for submit will be login. Now one major thing we have missed over here is form tag. Okay. Form tag, some indentation, this, and here we will write the action because we have created. So let's login. Now let's move to login.jsp. Over here we will term it as login JSP page, right? And here in h1 tag we will write login JSP page, the same as the title. Now again we have to get values from the user, so that is string username is equal to request dot get parameter that is username, string password is equal to request dot get parameter, that will be password. Again, the same process we have to do over here is inside the try and catch block. That is out.println. Here we will write exception, print the exception. Here again we require class.forName. So what we will do is from the register.jsp we will just copy the driver name. After that we will have connection on is equal to driver manager dot get connection. Again we will have three things over here. So here it will be root and here it will be admin. Now only we have to copy the string, connection string. So here we will copy this, right? So once this is done, now what we have to do is we have to write the SQL query. So here we will write prepared statement. Prepared statement is equal to connection dot prepare statement. Here we will write select password from users, the table name where username is equal to again question mark. Now using PST we will set the string of this question mark as username. So if the user is validated, it will return one query, right? Otherwise it will not. So what we have to do over here is we have from using result set, we have to get whether any data is present or not. So result set is equal to pst dot execute query. So it will execute the query, and if it contains any data, means if any next value is present, then what it will do, and if no data is present, then what it will do, right? So if no data is present with this user, so what it will do is it will print that username does not exist. And again the same we will do over here is we will close this JSP tag and include the page of login. Now if it is successful, we just have to print on the screen using the h1 tag that login is successful. So here we are done with the coding part of this also, right? Okay, so the major important part that is left is now we have forgot to compare the password. So if my password dot equals rs dot get string and 1. Now let's understand why we have written 1 over here. So basically we are checking the password with what? From the result set get the first, means there are two columns. There will be by default. First will be the serial number, right? And second will be our, if we run this over here, select password from users where username equal to in single quotes we will write. So here basically we are getting from the column password, we are getting password, but in database over here indeed means always in the code we have the first column as the serial number, which is by default generated. So we are writing 1. So here also the index starts from 0, but since it is the second column, it would be the second column. We are writing 1 over here. So if the password matches, then we have to print that it is successful, or else again we have to do the same scenario over here at print we don't have to actually print anything, but we just actually will not do anything. The username and password does not exist, it will display again the same. So what we will do now is go to login and right click and run the file. So what we will do now is we will add some dummy data and check whether it is validating the user properly, dummy and password, and click on log. So it has displayed that username does not exist. Now what about if we write the proper data and click on login? So it has displayed that login is successful. So with this we complete the practical of 4C, that is registration and login in JSP using JDBC, that is Java Database Connectivity. Hope all of you have understood what does the practical indicate and the steps related to it. Thank you.